Okay, so welcome to the Attract, Nurture, and Convert framework. Now, this is one of the most important frameworks to grasp when it comes to content that actually converts and sells for you, because it's not just about posting more, it's about posting and creating each post to start from with purpose. Purpose. So, what I'm going to walk you through today in this training is how to map your content to the right stage of buyer belief so that it actually moves people. Okay, so we want to move people from curiosity to connection to conversion. And when you understand this and fully grasp this, it takes away so many of those content questions that drain your energy, like, should I post a reel or a carousel? Should this be authority content or problem awareness content? Do I need to post more value? Like, what stage am I at? Because it's not about the format and it's not about the content type. It's about knowing the purpose behind what you're creating. That has to be the number one focus. What job does this post need to do? Where is your buyer right now, the one you're talking to, and how are you helping her to take the next step? And once that is clear, the format, the angle, and even the messaging becomes so much easier. And that's what we're about to map out together so that every post you create moves your audience and your business forward with complete intention. But before we go any further, I just want to get it clear that we are not obsessing over the format or the type of content. So, like, is it a reel? Is it carousel? Is it problem awareness, education? Like, what should I post today? That isn't the focus. We are leading your messaging and your content with purpose and strategy always, because every buyer has to move through this journey. They have to move through attract to nurture to convert. Okay. So your content needs to be able to guide them, not fuse them through this journey. And like full real mastery of this, really getting this and doing it without thinking, is always knowing what your content is doing and why. Comes back to the purpose. Okay. Now, sometimes I see people trying to do all three of these things in one post, like, oh, because I want to go viral and I want to close a sale at the same time. But what you're doing then is you're just going to end up watering things down. So we want to be making sure we move your buyers. And remember, you have got buyers that have come into your audience all at different points. We want to move each one through the attraction stage, the nurture stage, and the convert stage. So I really want you to think about your content like a buyer journey. Okay. Now, this funnel that I've created shows the path that someone, literally anyone who lands on your page, takes from not knowing you exist to choosing to buy from you. And then to becoming a repeat client who's like fully in and wants to just keep working with you and keep working with you for years. Okay. Now, each of these stages, attract, nurture, convert, cross sell, LTV. What that means is cross sell is like people going into different offers, and LTV is like an industry term called lifetime value. So it's like one client coming to work with you. The value isn't just what they signed up for there, it's the lifetime value. And this is where like stacking your offers, having multiple offers comes into play. But our content does the job of that. So often content gets muddled and confusing because, like I said, we're trying to do too much at once. Okay. So, how it actually works and the purpose of each of these aspects is attract drives traffic to your page and gets new eyes on you, on your work, on what you do. Okay. Basically, attract is where you are capturing attention. It's not about being helpful. It's about being really magnetic. So when we post attract content, it's not actually for your existing audience at all. They might still get something from it and enjoy it, but this is for new eyes to drive new traffic to your page. Okay. Now, this is what gets people through the door. And it's where they go from, like, who is this, to he gets me, because that's the next stage. So they're in the door. Now they are at the stage where you have to nurture them, because nurturing, what we do here, this is where you build up that emotional trust and emotional connection that I talk about all the time. It's where you make your audience feel seen, because this is the space and this is the stage where people start to see you as the one who gets them, like you're in their head, and you just might be the answer that they've been looking for. Okay, so it's where belief builds and that desire for what they want really grows. And this doesn't happen by you teaching more or educating more. It happens by being clear, by being consistent in your messaging, and by being like deeply resonant. So everything you put out resonates and connects with them. And then convert. Now, obviously, convert is where we want to generate inquiries and we want to sell. But it's also, when it comes to your content, it is where your content needs to activate decisions. So this is where the bold, the confident, the authoritative, the offer-focused content comes in. Okay, it's not pushy, it's not overly salesy, but it's clear. And this is the moment when your audience, they're already warm, and your content in this convert stage gives them the nudge to say, I'm in, I want to sign up. Okay. And then I'm not actually going to touch much on cross-sell lifetime value today, but this is where a lot of people actually drop the ball, because your client experience and your existing clients are always going to be the warmest, most ready audience that you've got, even your audience that are inside something free. Okay. So when you deliver, when you serve, when you sell again from a place of authority and alignment, you don't just make one sale. You scale a business that compounds and stacks in value month after month. And that's why it's called lifetime value, because clients reinvest in you. Now, what I want you to do before we go any further is I want you to pause this and I want you to look at this buyer journey, basically, and think not just like, where am I showing up? Like, where am I showing up in my content? But I also want you to think about, what role is my content playing? So if you looked at, say, your last 10 posts, what role has your content played? Which of these categories would it come into? And then, does that align with what you were trying to do? Because when you align your content to these stages intentionally, that's when it becomes so much easier to attract new people, to build desire, to sell without having to constantly chase or like over explain yourself. So what we're going to do now is we're going to break each one of these down in slightly more detail so that you can start really taking on this framework and using it in your content this week and every week moving forward. So obviously, we're going to start with attract. So the attract stage of the framework is all about attention and awareness. Okay, this is where it all begins. Like, attract is about visibility, it's about energy, and it's about getting the right people, i.e., your dream clients, to stop and notice you. Okay, now I've talked a lot previously about growth and sales content, which those are still very valid. But what we're now doing is we're going deeper, because if we think about it in terms of growth and sales content, we're separating content into only like two buckets: grow or sell. Whereas the attract, nurture, convert framework gives you the middle, which is actually the most important part. The middle is where you build that belief. It's where trust deepens, connection deepens, and your audience actually become ready to buy, because you're building your brand as you create content. So the attract stage is the moment your content acts like a magnet. Very much why it's called attract, okay? It's the first impression someone has of you. So this is why it's not about teaching. It's not about showing how much you've got to give. It's not about giving a ton of value and education. It's about making someone feel like, wait, who is this? Like, what did they just say? Your audience at this stage is problem aware. Okay. So they know they have a problem, but they're completely unaware of you because they haven't found you yet. So this is why you have to attract. And it's really important to understand. That's why I've broken it down into these four things: purpose, the energy behind this type of content, the buyer belief level, and then the content types that can come in here. And you'll see lots of crossover because this buyer belief level really changes the way you create this content. So if you start talking loads about your story in here, it's not going to connect because the purpose of attraction and growth content, visibility, getting yourself out there and bringing more eyes to your page is to make them stop and think because they don't know you right now. Okay, they don't know you are the one who can help them get to where they want to go. Like I said, they know what their problem is. They're feeling stuck. They're frustrated. They might be curious even, but they don't know you and they don't know anything about how you can help them. So, what really works here is that you want to be able to spark curiosity. You want to be able to stop the scroll. And some of the best ways to do that are through like making bold statements, pattern interrupts. And what I mean by pattern interrupts is that saying something slightly different to the way someone else says it, or taking a something that is said all of the time and flipping it on its head, or using an analogy to get them to see something different. Okay, it's really about reframes, shifts in perspective, which I've put down here because those are what stop the scroll. Okay, you want to have some posts that speak directly to their frustration, to their fears, or the identity shifts that your ideal client is experiencing. So we don't just in attract stage want to talk to the pains. So if you were thinking about problem aware type content in the attract stage, often that would problem aware content in this stage sounds like a reframe, a shift, or calling them out. So it could say something like, you don't have a sales problem, you have a presence problem. Okay, because that's going to make people feel seen and then get them to question, like, oh, okay, follow this person because she's making me think differently. She might have something I like that can help me. Okay, polarizing and thought leadership content in the attract stage basically shows that you've got something different to say. So you're not just another coach or service provider repeating the exact same things in the exact same way. So, how you want to think about this type of content is bold opinions, like shaking up the norm. Okay. Like, I think I did a piece of content once which was got really kind of high engagement and attracted quite a lot of new followers because it said something like, the reason you're not making sales is because of your copy crap content. So I was bold. I made up a phrase, copy crap content, and I just went for it. And then obviously my post went on to explain that, but it was polarizing and thought leadership because it was my opinion. It was quite bold, but I could stand by it. It was shaking up the norm and it was like calling out surface level advice that is in my industry. So you could do the same for it in your niche. And then identity driven work beautifully here because when something is identity driven, these posts speak directly to how your ideal client currently sees herself. Or if you flip it, how she wants to be seen. Okay, so you can talk about the future pacing identity. So it could be something like, you're not new to business, you're just tired of selling like someone who is new. although I've repeated myself, but it's like, what's the identity that she really feels stuck in right now or that she wants? And then when it comes to reframe, shifting perspectives, and scroll stoppers, they are always short, punchy lines that instantly shift perspective. Okay. Something like, you don't need more content, you just need more purpose. Or you don't need more content, you need more conviction in your words. So the energy here, the energy for the whole of the attract stage is disruptive, it's confident, it's unapologetically owning. You're not explaining, you're like evoking emotion. And you're saying just enough to make them feel something and want more. Okay. So ask yourself right now with your attract posts where you are trying to get new eyes into your audience, are they bold enough? Are they clear enough? Are they scroll stopping enough? Like, do they make somebody pause mid scroll and say, I want to know more about this girl? Okay. Would you stop and go and look on that person's profile for that post? Because if you wouldn't, they're not going to. Okay. Now, this is the moment that we can start fixing this. So I just wanted to give you a couple of examples on the screen so that you can see how these would work. And these are all for my niche because it's the easiest way to do it. So, but you can see the type of content. So problem awareness, you don't have a niche problem, you have a clarity problem. Okay, meaning they're not clear on what they want to do. Identity led, so you're the coach, people ask for advice, but you're undercharging like you're brand new. That's also a shift in perspective one. Polarizing or thought leadership, like people pleasing doesn't belong in premium high level sales. So you're just making a statement. And if they're a people pleaser, which I wouldn't have posted this if they weren't, or made up posted this, they're going to think, oh, okay, but I want to make premium sales. So what do I need to do differently? And then if you wanted to do a reframe, this is just like a low level light reframe. It's not your offer that's the problem, it's your energy behind the offer. So it's similar to problem awareness as well, but it's reframing and shifting their perspective. Okay. And then just examples of what that looks like on a post, because this is me showing you that it doesn't have to be a reel or a carousel. There is a bit of a myth that, or to attract, I should always use reels. But that is not the case in the slightest. And that's why focusing on content type is the wrong thing to focus on. It's what you are trying to get across. So if you are attracting, you can do that same thing, whether it's on a reel or whether it's on a static post or a whole carousel. So these two, no, this one was a carousel. So I've used things from across different people. When it's not me, I've put their handle so that you can go and look at that post if you want to on their page. And I've tried to mix them up so they're different niches. So this one here is obviously me, and this is identity led. So the version of you already signing premium clients and filling your groups isn't shrinking to be chosen or panicking over price. She's already seen what happens when you start leading with power, and she's waiting for you to stop softening the very thing that makes you magnetic. Set your present and step the fuck in so you scale big this year. So that is what she wants. It's me actually, the reel is like me dancing about. So that's something that's going to stop the scroll as well, and the music. And it's like, oh, okay, that's what I want my version of me to be. So it's identity led. This one is shifting the perspective. So you say you love being single, but why does this keep happening? Because that now adds curiosity and they want to know more. So obviously, somebody who's been single, who is single, is going to look at this and they're like, oh, okay, that's a great attract post. And then this one, fuck normal, I want magic. This is by the Manifestation Babe. So, talking about magic makes sense for her brand. It's not vague for her. But this is great thought leadership, pattern interrupting, because that would stop the scroll. And also, that would be like a shareable post because it's like, yes, loads of people would resonate with that. So, therefore, you would want to follow this person. So those are just some different examples of how you can do the attract stage. Now, when it comes to nurture, the purpose of nurture is all about connection and belief building. Okay, so this is where your content moves from trying to have attention to emotion. Okay, and nurture is the most underestimated stage, but it's actually the one that makes people buy. Okay, because this is where you build their belief in you, the belief that they can have the result that they want. Like at this point, your audience, again, they are problem aware. They know they have a problem. They know something isn't working, and they're curious about a solution that might be out there, and they're starting to look at you as someone who might be able to help them. So this is why this stage is so important, because if they're on your page and they're curious about you, you need to do the right things at this stage to keep warming them up so that they move through the buyer journey closer to convert. Okay. The thing is, at this stage, they might still be asking, well, they will still be asking things like, can she really help me? Like, does she really get me? Do I trust her approach more than like all the other people I see online? So, your job, your purpose in your nurture content is to be able to answer those questions without directly answering them. So, you're showing them that you get them, that you can help them, that they can trust you through your content without just telling them, you can trust me. Okay, so the energy of this content really needs to be like grounded. It really needs to be like resonant and emotionally intelligent. Like you're not just giving value, you're also making them feel seen and understood and safe. So how each of the content types could look here. So you can see from awareness is also in the nurture stage. But what we would do here is we would just expand on problem awareness and go deeper than we would with problem awareness in the attract stage. Okay, so you would go deeper than just naming the problem, and you might explore why that problem exists or go into painting the picture of what that looks like in their real life. Okay, so like it's not that you're not confident, you've just never been taught to trust your own voice. And then you go on to expand and go deep with that problem awareness so they can start to build up that emotional resonance and deep connection with you. Solution focused in nurture, this is missed too often because people, again, think they need to focus on the pain points, but nobody just wants to be focusing on their pain all of the time. They want to see what's possible. Okay, so solution focused without the strong sales call to action is you showing what's possible for them, but you're not necessarily pitching your offer. Okay, so you could say things like, here's what changed when I stopped overthinking and micromanaging all of my content and started trusting my own voice. And then you go on to say, like, what changed, how that looked, because that's what they want. Okay. Now, education and value comes into nurture, but it's so important. This is education with your point of view from your lens. So it's not just the same type of stuff you can get off Google because it's all filtered through your point of view and your lens. So teach from that point of view. So it's not generic tips, it's not something you can Google or chat GPT, but it's frameworks, it's shifts, it's perspectives, it's the way you do things that are uniquely and distinctly you. So think about like here's how I think about confidence, or here's how I go about being more visible in my business, or here's how I um manifest everything I bloody well want. And it's not, and believe me, you haven't heard this before. Okay. Something a bit different. It doesn't have to be 5 ways too. So this is education through your lens. That's what's going to have you nurturing your audience. And then storytelling and reflection. So these are all about sharing moments from your own growth, your client transformations, don't just give the highlight reel. Go into those moments. There's a big trend at the moment, not it's like an industry trend, not like a TikTok trend, where over the course of this year, people really want more storytelling. They want those moments to connect to. And remember, that's what we're doing here. We're building connection and belief and emotional trust. So, like, when you're talking about your growth, like, what almost stopped you? Like, what did you believe before you knew better? What did? Like, what were you feeling? Like, I'm going to give an example of a minute. Like, I invested 5K in my business. And yes, my palms were sweating, my heart was beating, so you want to describe the things that your ideal client is having as well. That's storytelling, that's reflections, and that's talking to a moment, okay? Not just skimming through like the main highlights. And then what the reason I've put soft thought leadership here is because this isn't about going like, bang, I'm going to shout the loudest. This is about belief building posts that position you as someone with a clear message and like a really grounded truth. Okay, so this is the kind of content where people like nod or they screenshot and they think about it the next day. So if you were going to do like a client proof example, it's like a softer version as well. It's not just um, she made 10K in her first month with me, but it's something like, here's what she said after finally hitting publish without overthinking it. Or here's what she told me after finally hitting publish and then a month later having her first 10K month. Okay. That's what's going to create emotional trust and build desire for what's possible for you. So in this nurture stage, you're not teaching to prove yourself to anyone that you have so much to give. You're teaching to build belief. You're not sharing stories to like get validation. You're sharing stories to like show what's possible for them. And nurture content isn't like quiet, it's powerful. It's the thing that makes someone say, like, I don't just like her content and trust her content, or trust her with my growth. Okay. So, again, here are just a couple of examples. Solution focused. What changed when I started selling from belief, not fear? So you go on to say that, and it's a catchy hook. Doesn't all have to be in your first slide or real hook. Educational, like why your CTA isn't working and how to fix it without being pushy. So again, it's just a different way of giving like an educational from your perspective. Here's the mindset shift that unlocked daily client DMs for me. Okay. So again, it's educational. They're going to learn something in a different way to what you're used to. Storytelling. When I launched my first offer, I thought I had to perform, but here's what actually worked. And then you're not just giving them the facts of what worked. I would be taking them through the journey, linking some of those feelings to what they would be feeling. And then a soft proof example, like my client didn't need a funnel, he needed a one sentence reframe, and that created 4 new clients in 6 days. So I could then go on to explain what that reframe was, why that made such a difference. Okay. So, oh, for some reason, the first one isn't coming back. So this first one was an example from my content, which said posting authority-led content means nothing if you're still being Miss Nicey Nicey in the DMs where the sale is actually happening. So it's educational and client story, but it's also quite thought leadership. It actually ticked a lot of boxes, but unfortunately it hasn't come up here. This one is from Samantha Binks Coaching, and this is a great example of expanded problem awareness and solution focused. So, surpassing your goals by the time July hits is so doable, but it's not motivation you need, it's a new identity. So, she's nurturing, she's building trust, and she goes on to explain the why. And then this is from Hannah Rose Cluley, I think you pronounce her name. Now she is great, but she's very bold. And this is a great storytelling one, but in her way. The only April Fools I'm thinking about was the fool who told me 20K months were too out of reach and now I make 100K months. So it's storytelling, but God, is it getting her authority across? And she goes on to explain in her caption the story behind that. So it's just different ways that you can do your content for nurture. And then convert. So convert is all about activating those decisions and driving sales. Okay. This is where we stop like hinting things and we start being obvious and inviting people in. So convert content is where your audience, they really know that they have a problem. Okay. They've been in your world, they've read your stories, they've like felt your connection, they resonate with you. And now they're wondering, like, what's the next step? Can she help me? Should I work with her now? Should I jump into this offer? And then this is where you like hold the door wide open. Okay. Now the energy here is activating, it's bold, you're being the leader, you're owning the results of that your offer can give, you're owning your results. It's grounded, it's unapologetic. Like you're not convincing anyone to buy, you're clarifying why this is the best thing out there. You're not selling from like fear or scarcity or what if no one buys. You're selling from self leadership, the leadership of yourself. So again, you'll see some of these content types overlap. And that's why we don't focus on content types. We just focus on the purpose behind what your content does and the stage of your buyer. So solution focused with the offer tie-in, because obviously we're driving everyone towards the offer at this point in time. So if you were doing solution focused here, it wouldn't be like something vague or a vague insight. We want to tie it directly to what you do and how you do it. Okay. So if you're ready to stop second guessing and start showing up with confidence, trusting everything that you do, then this is what we work on inside of whatever your offer is. Okay. Now, authority content will actually be every single piece of content that you put out in this stage. But basically, in your authority content, you are always showing why you're the one, not with like ego led, but with evidence, with perspective, and with like clear positioning. So this one can like tie in with client proof. So things like my client had the right strategy, but what moved the needle was shifting her identity about being seen. That's the work that we do in my world, something like that. Okay. Educational, like belief shifting. This very much is like, why now? Why should they invest in this now? So this is still valuable education, but it's very directed. Like you have created this with purpose so that you are shifting the beliefs that might be stopping them from signing up to your offer. So you're shifting the belief that's keeping them stuck in indecision and on the fence right now. So it might be like, if selling feels hard, it's not because you're bad at it, it's because you're trying to do it without clarity. Okay. Or it might be the belief you have that you will invest after you've made money is the reason you're not making money. Let me explain. Okay. So you're really shifting that perspective and educating them, but all directing them in getting off the fence. And then offer focused messaging obviously comes into the convert stage. So, what is the offer? Give them what they actually need, like who's it for, what it helps them to do, be really specific with the actual transformations, break it down clearly because confusion is what kills conversion. Okay. And then transformations, like transformations are the same, whichever stage we're using them in. And then some examples. My client went from no one's buying to I just hit 8K and it wasn't a strategy issue. Authority. It's just showing you standing by what you believe. Offer, invite, solution focus. So this is how you could do this as a reel. And it doesn't have to be like, this is my offer. So POV, you show up daily with bold positioning, aligned with your identity, your 5 figures get banked each month, and you're working less than ever. And it's because you joined the mastermind 4 months ago. Okay, sign up now. Or I actually don't know why I put that sign there. And then belief shift. Now, this is like the example I just gave around any objections that they might have. And I would do this over a carousel. So, like, I invested 5K into a coach with my heart in my throat last month, but I reaped the rewards of that in the first 2 weeks because I stopped thinking I had to make money before I invested, and I backed the version of me who made money in her sleep. So you're like not convincing them, you're shifting the belief that they have by telling the story of when you invested big in something and reap the rewards. And remember, rewards don't have to be a monetary return on investment. It's however you help your ideal clients. Okay. Now, these are 3 great examples. This is a brilliant one linked to that one I just talked about investing. This is by the Motivation Man. I gave £300 to a stranger. Okay. So she goes on to explain, and she does this really well in this post, like the feeling she was having and what that meant for her. So it gets those people off the fence. Okay. This was one of my perspective shifting. There are 2 women with the exact same strategy. Woman A is stuck at 1K months. B is on her way to make her first 8K month. Why? So there's curiosity, there's some like attract there. This would hit the attract stage as well. But when they go on, I am very much doing this, and I'm showing them that when you've got strategy, this solution is more likely to be what happens for you than this, because this is where you currently are. So it really shifts their perspective. And then with Kelly Ellison Coaching, how I used my unique framework to help Lucy drop £10 in 8 weeks. So not only is this client results, but it's also through her lens, because she talks about her framework. And then she goes on to say and talk about, like, we did this is how I do things different. Okay. So it's very much about selling, but it doesn't have to be. Look, none of these examples are talking about the offer straight away. Now, one of the things I want to touch on is your content doesn't need more ideas. Okay, you don't have to have 500 million different ideas to post on. It just needs more intentional direction. Like, you can use the same message, but at a different stage in the buyer journey and for a different purpose, because the most powerful concepts and messages in your brand should be repeated, because this is what you become known for. But how you frame them changes everything. So I wanted to give you an example of how you can take the same core idea, the same core message, and you can move your audience from attract to nurture to convert, depending on the purpose and stage of their buyer journey. So let's just say we're thinking about problem awareness. And the theme that we want to talk about, the message, is that they are struggling to sell. Okay. So if my purpose was all about attracting new people to my page, okay, I could have the theme, the hook, I should say, you don't actually have a sales problem, you have a presence problem. Okay. Now, this is a powerful attract style line, and it does multiple things at once. Okay. It disrupts like a common assumption that the problem is sales, which most people think. And then it calls out this deeper truth, like the fact about presence, and it makes someone stop and think differently. And that is what great attract content does. It's not here to educate, it's not here to explain, it's here to interrupt and reframe. Okay. And this kind of line, whether it was a static post or on a reel, it's like highly shareable, it's highly resonant and emotionally connected, and it makes your audience say, like, oh, she's right. That's exactly what's going on. Let me go and follow this person. Now, the goal here, so we're still talking about you're struggling to make sales. The goal here is to spark that curiosity and emotional recognition. So I'm not teaching them yet. I'm just getting them to look my way. Okay. Now, when I go on to talk about this same problem aware theme, you're struggling to sell. In the nurture stage, I could do something like, here's what shifted when I realized I wasn't selling, even though I thought I was just performing. Okay. So this is the nurture version of this exact same idea. And notice the difference in the energy. It's a bit more vulnerable. It's more reflective. It's not necessarily trying to grab their attention, but it's trying to create connection. Okay, so you're showing your audience that you get it, that you've been where they are. And instead of telling them what to do, you're like modeling belief shifts and transformation through story. And this nurture stage type of content is what makes people trust you. And it doesn't just build authority, it builds like emotional safety with you because they start thinking, if she gets that, then like maybe she gets me too. And that's where you deepen the belief that you are the one without having like to try too hard to sell anything. Okay. So when we then stick with the same problem awareness theme of you're struggling to sell, how can we use that in the convert stage? So the more you avoid selling, the more months you have with zero in your bank account. When you sell from the identity of my clients are waiting to buy, just watch those pounds land in your account. Okay. Now, this is your convert moment. And the shift here is clear. So I'm no longer just connecting, I'm activating. This line, like, really directly challenges the behavior keeping my audience stuck, and while giving them a powerful like reframe that ties into the result that they want, which is this money in the bank. Okay, now this type of content gives your warmest leads here the permission to say yes. And that's what you want them to do, because you're not just teaching, you're not just storytelling, you're inviting them to make a decision. And notice that even though I'm selling here, it still feels grounded and empowering. It's not pushy, it's not desperate, it's just clear. And clear is what sells. Okay. Now, obviously, those are all linked to being a business coach. So, just briefly, I wanted to give you some examples of how you can do that for a confidence coach, with the main theme being she doesn't trust herself to take up space. Okay, the ideal client. So, if this was the attract, it's not that you don't have what it takes to claim what you want. You've just been taught to shrink yourself to keep other people comfortable. Okay. Now that calls out the behavior that she's judging herself for and reframes it as it's actually conditioning, and you've been conditioned to think and act and behave this way. So it hits home in that way. Same message, but for nurture, for years I called it procrastination. But what I was really feeling was a fear of being seen. Listen up. Okay. Now, what this one does is it builds emotional connection by naming the real feeling behind her habits at the moment, which is fear. Okay. And then this one, so that's naturally then building trust. With the converts, you're ready to stop second guessing every move and finally trust yourself to say yes to the new job, to that date you've been putting off, to the version of you who's fucking confident about everything she does. So, what you're waiting for, this is exactly what we do inside Offer. Okay. This offers a solution through your offer that then leads to self-trust, confident action. It's empowering, it's activating them, it's allowing them to make a decision. Okay, so it just shows you can take one message and you can use it in the attract stage, the nurture stage, and the convert stage. You're not reinventing the wheel every single time. Okay, now there's always going to be overlap. So the question when you're using the attract, nurture, convert framework is how to know when to use each in your like phase of launch or when you're not in a launch. And as usual, there's no exact set answer, but I did want to give you like a general rule of thumb that you can try and follow. So if you're in launch mode, okay, now if you're in launch mode, I would like you to be posting like about 5 times a week because this is when you're going all in. You want to be seen everywhere by everyone. Okay. Now, your audience, when you're in launch mode, is already warm because you will have gone through that like a lot of nurture before you launch something. So, your goal is to move them to action. So this means the purpose of your content is it needs momentum, it needs to be clear, it needs clarity, and we need to be like stacking those beliefs. So they've got the trust and the connection in you, but we now need to be like, yes, come on, let's go. I've heard enough about like everything Paula has to offer. I am now in her offer. Okay. So if you're in like a live launch, the kind of rhythm that you want is a mix of visibility, a mix of trust, and selling. You mainly want the selling, but you still want visibility and trust because people are coming into your audience at different points. Okay. So, what I would do here is if you were like, again, this is a general rule of thumb. If you were posting 5 times a week, I would post 1 attract, 2 nurture, and 2 convert. Okay. So this isn't about, oh, I would post 1 problem solving, 2 authority, and 2 client stories. We're talking about where your buyer is on the journey. Now, by posting the 1 attract, that is basically getting to get more eyes on your offer, to keep bringing people in. Even though we're selling, we still want to be bringing more of our ideal clients in. Okay. Then I would do 2 nurture type posts in that week to keep building belief and really deepening the connection. So we want to keep, like, there might be some people in your audience who still need a bit of warming up because they haven't been in there very long. So we want to still be giving them the nurture so that in the time period that you're in your launch, you're in your open cart, you can convert them from warm to hot in that stage. Okay. And then I would also do 2 very clear convert posts that really activate the decision and invite the sale. Now, for the nurture and for the convert, I would still have calls to action, which are about the offer. Okay, so even in the nurture, I would still do that. But my purpose of the post I'm creating is to nurture, and my call to action is still making them aware and driving them towards my offer. But what this kind of balance does is it keeps your launch warm, it keeps your launch visible, and it keeps your launch moving because launches never fail from lack of effort. They fail when you only nurture and never actually ask for the sale. And I've seen this so many times. Okay. So this is how we make sure your content isn't just supportive and like, oh, I want them to see all the value I've got to give, but it's strategic. And that's how we convert and that's how we sell. So that is what I would do as a rule of thumb if you're in a launch. Now, if you're not in a launch, you're in like a value stage, or you're always selling, but you're selling quietly. We don't want to go below 3 posts, 3 to 4 a week is a good number. Now, at this point, like your audience is steady, they might be a bit less engaged because you're not as activated, you're not as everywhere as you are when you're in a launch. So your goal here is to stay like top of their mind, in the front of their mind. You want to still be relevant and you want to be ready to sell at any single moment. So in this stage, your content needs real consistency. A lot of the time in this stage, people drop off. So they're like, oh, I'm not in a launch. But the problem there is people start to lose trust in you, is that you only show up to sell. So you have to keep that consistency, still be the leader, and have that quiet authority. Okay. So when you're in this stage, if you're doing 3 to 4 posts a week, you're still selling, but it's just got less urgency about it and it's got more consistency. So I would make sure I was still doing one attract. You can see the theme there. Let's have one attract every single week to keep bringing eyes, unless you're choosing and your focus is right. This whole week, I'm attracting new eyes. I'm doing 5 days of attraction stage content. Okay. But we want one a week because, again, this is going to keep your audience growing and it's going to keep building your brand. Nurture, depending if you do 3 or 4 times a week, I would do 1 or 2. Okay, so this is the one to go heavier on because you want to stay connected. You want to be the glue, keeping you and your audience basically together and keep building that belief and not letting them feel like, oh, she only shows up when she's selling something. And then convert, you want to, in this stage, even though you're not in launch, you still want to have a post which really talks about your offer in that week. Okay. So it could be like you're doing a client result and this is what happens like in the mastermind. Message me for details. Like it's not as heavy, it's not as direct, but you're still selling. It's like a quiet invitation. Now, the big takeaway that I want you to leave with from this training on the attract, nurture, convert framework is your content isn't just a task or a to-do list or what type shall I post today, a reel or a carousel. Okay, it's so much more than that, and it has to start with purpose, and that's where this framework comes in, because your content is your most powerful sales tool when it is used with intention. Every piece of content has a job to do, whether that's attracting fresh eyes, nurturing the beliefs, or like converting sales. When you create your content with those stages in mind, everything does become easier. Like momentum builds easier, demand is there, your brand is building, your sales come in easier. So as you plan your content this week, next week, every single week, I want you to ask yourself, what's the purpose behind my week this week? And then what's the purpose with the post that I'm sitting down right now to write? What stage of the buyer journey am I talking to? And is my content actually moving people closer to buying, or which is the content stage, or am I just keeping them watching, which is like attract, nurture stage? Because that's how you go from posting for visibility to building real authority and connecting. That's the journey you need to take them on, because content isn't just about showing up. It's about moving your audience through each stage closer to your offers, one stage at a time. I enjoy looking at what you've put together.